Welcome to the Greenleaf Music Podcast. This is Dave Douglas. Little message here. As you know, these episodes have been coming at a slower rate, and there's a good reason for that. First of all, I've always been a musician, and that just takes time. Practicing, writing, teaching, touring. So I haven't been able to get to these episodes as much as I'd like, but Alloy just came out. I hope you've checked out the album. We just released some extra tracks on a CD that goes exclusively to our subscribers, so we hope that you'll consider joining. We do need you. This is a free podcast, and I really hope that you will subscribe and check out everything that's happening at Greenleaf Music. I've already made a new quartet album with Marta Varelli's Nick Dunstan and Joey Barron. I also recorded a new Gifts Quintet album with James Brandon Lewis, Tomika Reed, Rafik Bhatia, and Ian Chang. That'll be coming out around the end of March when we play at the Big Ears Festival. So lots of new music. I'm also writing a show. It's sort of a musical in collaboration with the lyricist David Haydu. There'll be a lot more about that later. The biggest thing holding me up with these episodes is that I'm writing a book. When I started 4 years ago, I thought it would be a quick project. And big update, it's not. It's a musico-philosophical memoir due sometime in 2027 and putting in a lot of time on that. So that explains what's happening with the podcast and why I haven't gotten as many out. I will be making new episodes, but I'd love to finish this book that's about me so I can write about a lot of other things. In the meantime, I thought I would bring you some conversations that you might have missed. This is Patricia Brennan, who is pretty much everywhere these days, vibraphonist, composer, band leader, and this is our conversation from a few years ago. She also plays on this album, Alloy, that I mentioned. The Extras CD is called Alloy Extras, imaginatively enough. It's available to subscribers of Greenleaf Music, so come and join us. This was a really inspiring talk for me, and Patricia is fantastic, so I hope you enjoy the episode. Thanks for listening. Hi, this is Dave Douglas, and that is the music of Patricia Brennan, pitched percussion player, improviser, composer, originally from Veracruz, Mexico. And I'm going to be talking to her about her latest record, Makishti, on the Valley of Search label, as well as her path to percussion and sound, her work with electronics. We get into a lot of really interesting inspirations and influences and names. So really hope you enjoy this episode. Come get all the episodes and the whole catalog of everything we do at Greenleaf Music, including A Noise from the Deep, all the episodes, but also join us as a member and get the entire catalog. It's greenleafmusic.com. And thank you so much for listening. And here is a little more music by Patricia Brennan. Patricia Brennan. It's so great to see you, even though it's Zoom. Thank you so much for joining me. I loved hearing all this music.
Thank you so much, Dave. Thanks for having me.
And we're speaking remotely as we do these days, but you're in Brooklyn?
Yeah. It's the Lefferts Gardens area in Prospect Park South of the neighborhood.
A
So
lot of
yeah,
musicians in that area, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
That's great. I hope that, people have the opportunity to be out playing and doing stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I usually, well, not usually. I guess it's every musician is so unique, and of course you're no different.
Mhm.
But I like to ask people about their early experiences in music. That I always feel like as a child, there's something mystical about how one finds one way to loving music and being involved in it. I know in Veracruz, where you're from, there must be some very passionate memories that you have.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just since I have recollection of any experience, it's always music in the
Mm.
street, outside my mom's store. We were in the downtown area, so there's marimba playing. There's like the guys, carrying the marimba around, and they just, park in front of whatever restaurants, stores, cars, doesn't matter what it is, and they just start playing from Cuban son groups to son jarocho and mariachi, and like so it's like very rich musical experience, but also within my family, my paternal grandmother was a concert pianist. So
Mm.
inside the house, I used to see her practice. And eventually, I think I used to go over and try to play the keys like in the higher register. And sometimes, she would be a little annoyed by that. But I
Hmm.
think eventually that led for me to starting actual music lessons.
Wow.
And I was lucky too that in that town, there's a conservatory, so there's not that many music schools, well, at least at the time in the country in general, usually Mexico City or Jalapa, which is the capital of Veracruz. And now there's a few other conservatories too. But at the time, I was kind of lucky to have just a music school like 4 blocks away from my house. So that had a huge impact in my beginning in my musical journey. So.
Wow. And I'd imagine they had you on all different kinds of instruments at that time.
Yeah, it's actually very, I guess, disciplined. Like
Mm.
everybody has to play piano at first, so I started that when I was about 3.
Was that
Um,
pressure from your grandmother?
yeah, I mean, well,
Mm.
actually, I just loved it. I was
Uh-huh.
really drawn to her
Yeah.
playing, and I just wanted to do that too. And I think I used to see her doing it. Every young child, like you see something and you just want to do it too.
Right.
So I think it started from that place, but also just the music around me. My dad also, it's an amateur Latin percussionist, so he
Mm.
used to rehearse at home with his band, and or
Wow.
we will go, so and he will have me play with them sometimes just to, get me to do something in the when they were hanging out. So there was always that influence around me, and I kind of didn't know anything else. So I
Wow.
just asked actually to go to the music school and get piano lessons. And then by
Yeah.
the time you turn 6 and you start the elementary program, you have to choose a second instrument. So I chose percussion because my dad was a
Wow.
percussionist.
Wow. That's so
So
great.
so that's how I started. And it's like you take solfege, you take choir, orchestra, all this. It's like a very structured
Yeah.
school.
Wow.
And it follows sort of the degrees or the grades, the school grades, but in a music sense. So yeah,
Yeah.
first grade, so
Wow.
on, but in music. Yeah. So it was really cool to have that there.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's interesting because in a public school in the United States, you probably wouldn't have gotten that. So it's a
Absolutely. Yeah.
very
Yeah.
particular Mexican thing.
Yeah, it's
Um,
a kind of one of those things. Like it's the history of the country, it's particularly Veracruz. There's so many immigrants,
yeah.
so there were a lot of Polish teachers there, and like
Wow.
Cuban teachers, and they kind of bring their own, I guess, culture, musical culture, and also musical education culture,
Yeah.
and they kind of at particular at that time, I had Russian teachers, like piano teacher, and so it was like a very interesting community in the middle of Mexico. But Mexico City is like that too. The conservatories there work the same way, and so I'm very thankful for that, because it gave me a lot of foundation for many things.
Wow,
so
that seems like a really particular Latin American thing.
Absolutely,
like so many countries have something like El Sistema, or different, very, very Cuban musicians, very well educated, and that's wonderful. I mean, when would you say? How old were you when you, let's say, played your first gig? And you can
5. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the gig?
It was a piano recital. So they selected like a couple performers from the conservatory, and then they will do this special event. So this time it was at a place that now is a museum, I think, but it used to be the registry, where like Veracruz was the capital of Mexico. Benito Juarez was a former president, like had like a whole office there. So it was like a building dedicated to him. So it was like a special event. So I remember I had to like prepare, I think it was like 2-3 pieces, and perform it. And so it was like an honors recital type of thing. So that was my first experience, just like actually performing in front of people and having that kind of pressure, not just like a school recital. Yeah. So it was, it was fun.
Did you start playing with your father's band at a certain point?
I used to, not with my father's band, but then I eventually joined, I used to play with a danzonera. So I play widow since I was like about 7-8 years old. So in Veracruz, there's in the main plaza, and then there's another plaza in the downtown area where every night of the week there's different music. So let's say Tuesday night is Cuban son, Wednesday night is danzón, Thursday night is I don't know, son jarocho or whatever. So I used to join a danzonera, like a danzón band, and play widow, because I used to, again, like you grew up seeing that, so you just kind of want to be part of all those environments. In the son jarocho group, I used to play the donkey jaw and tambourine sometimes, or just like those kind of like percussion little things. So
we some of the first records that me and my friends, let's say, in the States saw, where we saw that instrument, I think it was Hermeto Pascual, but they always credit it as jawbone of an ass.
I said it more, I guess.
What did you say?
Polite, donkey jaw.
Donkey jaw.
Yeah.
There's still something sort of dark about that.
Yeah. It's actually just like a really cool instrument, and just like the teeth are a little loose. So, and you use like a broomstick, like the piece of a broomstick, to kind of scrape the side of it. Yeah. And then you hit this part of the jaw, and that makes everything kind of shake. So it's
so nobody can see you, but she was pointing at the
Oh yeah, sorry.
the
jawbone.
Yeah, but the poor donkey.
Yeah, poor donkey. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of also a reflection of the culture, because like in a bar, I love cooking, because food is such a big part of the culture as well. And like a barbecue, like when you kill an animal, like you use every single part of it, and you eat almost every part of it too. So it's, I guess that's kind of one of those utilitarian elements of just using what you have in your environment and make music with it. So
wow, that's amazing. Yeah. So it wasn't too many years later that you found yourself in the youth orchestra of the Americans.
Yeah.
Was that just I mean, at this age we're talking, 7, 8, 9, did you already know you were going to be a musician? I mean,
I think I always wanted to do it, and I think maybe when I turned 12, it was like a serious question. But I think it was never like, oh, I'm going to do this. It's just one of those things that I was just doing all the time, outside of school, and all my friends were there. Everybody was, so it was like my social cultural environment. So when it got time to really, like 16, 17, to really decide like what am I going to do with my life, I just didn't know anything else, or I didn't really want to do anything else but continue to do what I was doing at the time. And obviously other elements like getting into the Youth Orchestra Americas like
Well,
kind of pushed me to make
what
those decisions.
what age was that you
That
did?
was 16,
Uh-huh.
17. I was
Okay.
turning 17. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's at
Yeah.
least a couple of years ago.
Yeah. That's nice. Yeah, definitely a couple of years ago.
But I'd
Yeah.
imagine, you had a, you had it must have been a pretty intense, audition process, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
got in playing classical percussion. So,
Absolutely, yeah. So I was actually the first generation of that program.
mm,
It was when it was created by Placido Domingo. I think he was I think he still is the creative director. I don't know.
mm,
But at the time, it was, and also I think Abreu from El Sistema from Venezuela was also his vision. So
mm,
there's a lot of a few key people that made this happen. So yeah, at the time, it was interesting because even though Veracruz is a very known city for marimba tradition.
mm,
In the school that I was going to, they didn't have mallet percussion. They
mm,
only had orchestral like snare drum, bass drum, all the timpani,
mm-hmm.
and so they finally got a xylophone when I was about 16, and it was the first time I was actually playing a mallet instrument like in that formal way. So
Mm,
when I found out about this audition, I had to play xylophone excerpts and
yeah.
glockenspiel and things like that.
Wow.
So it was one of those motivations to kind of get that part of my training together. So yeah, so the way it works, every country sends like a delegation. And so you
Wow.
audition locally, then you audition nationally, and then they send those auditions to the headquarters that at the time we're here, I think Washington DC or something, and then they make
Wow.
a final selection of everybody in the continent. So it was a really cool experience. I
Wow.
did it
Yeah,
twice,
that is
so
great.
yeah, yeah.
Fantastic. I want to just back up to something you said for a second. Can
Hmm.
you tell me a little bit about the marimba tradition in Veracruz?
Yeah.
What's that
So
music?
I'm sorry.
What is that music and what? Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, so there's two different schools. There's the Chiapas school. So there's a lot of marimba tradition, like the Nanda Yapa families from that
Mm,
area.
mm-hmm.
It's like Mexican marimba, like three people on an instrument, where usually it's divided, where like there's two, a melody one, melody two, harmony, and bass. So each person has that role in the instrument. So I guess the difference, Veracruz is the same as far as how it operates, but the difference is the repertoire.
Oh,
It's just the traditional songs from those two different areas, and also in
yeah.
Veracruz you start to hear more like Cuban songs
Mm,
on the marimba being played, or kind of they're more popular songs that
wow.
people are used to in the region, or son jarocho songs or things like that are particularly of Veracruz. But the role is usually the same. Like you'll have a bass player,
Right.
harmony, and one melody or two melody players on at the top.
And they're just spontaneous arrangements, or are there generations of arrangers for these marimba bands?
I think there's definitely generations. There's have been like families, that
Uh-huh.
kind of have
Wow.
have I guess their own I guess collection of arrangements.
Mm,
But it's one of those things that just kind of like, because a lot of these musicians, at least for the ones that I knew, weren't necessarily like classically trained. It was a lot of it was by ear, and just kind of
yeah.
passing
Right.
that down through generations. So the music of the arrangements were kind of in a similar vein.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I thought I would play an excerpt from a piece that you played on marimba. That probably, I don't know, maybe it does. I don't hear any connection to the traditions of Veracruz marimba bands, but I think it's an improvisation from your record,
Hmm.
Makishti, and you've called it Improvisation 6. So I would assume that it's the sixth improvisation on the.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that was actually the second day of recording. I just did a whole set of improvisations on both instruments. So yeah, this is
Wow.
the sixth one.
Okay, great. Here it is. beautiful piece. It's great music. What an instrument, huh?
I mean, marimba's my first love. When I started to play classical marimba, like the 5 octave instrument, it was really like my favorite instrument to focus on. And eventually, I mean, I guess, well, I will share later with you, it will make sense what influenced that kind of approach to the instrument, and which a lot of it has to do with just the repertoire, like the classical repertoire for marimba, and just the players that influenced me, just to be a percussionist of that manner, of just a soloist or an improviser and so on, which actually it's a marimba player too that I always looked up to. So
Who's that?
Keiko Abe, which is a
wow.
Japanese marimbist, which actually is like one of the most legendary marimba players, because it's because of her that even the 5 octave marimba exists.
Wow.
She was the one that kind of developed it with Yamaha, and then also she was an improviser, and she was one of the first people that I remember reading about, that she said that she just wanted to find her own voice as an improviser, and she used to write her own pieces and so on. So that was kind of one of those things that is like, I want to do that.
Wow. Can you say her name again?
Keiko Abe, Abe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
I definitely need to check that out. I was going to ask, the name of your record is Makishti, which I understand, is derived from the traditional languages from where you come from, and refers to freedom, and you've talked about the search for freedom. And then I also thought, I mean, this marimba piece is what brought it up, is that search for freedom of expression is what led you to pitched percussion and to finding your way into all the music on this record.
Yeah.
Am I getting it a little bit right, or?
Yeah. I mean, definitely, it's like I said. I mean, it was until I started to get deeper into just the I guess the important influencers in what it was being a percussion soloist. Because I guess I'll go a little bit into that tangent, because as a percussionist, most of the time in any conservatory, you get put into the box of like, okay, you play orchestral percussion, you're the one in the back of the orchestra, and that's all you can do.
Well, you have to get really good at counting rests.
Exactly. or a timpani player, right? So I mean, obviously I loved that music and I loved that role, and actually my last job before I moved out of Mexico, I was a fifth timpanist. I mean, assistant timpanist, fifth percussionist. So I love that. I love being, an orchestral percussionist, but I also wanted to feel like a violinist feels, playing a concerto or playing a solo recital, and as a percussionist as well. So that's when I started to research and get to know these other players, like Keiko Abe and all the people that she influenced, like Evelyn Glennie, a Scottish percussionist that brought percussion to the forefront and were more of an individual, and not only as far as repertoire, but also individual voices in their instruments. So that's where the sort of that search, I guess, began, and also they all happen to improvise on their concerts. So the connection to improvisation in that way, not necessarily just jazz, but just improvisation, and finding your own language while you do that. That was sort of the key elements that I just kept searching, and I'm still trying to look for when I touch my instrument. So yeah.
But how does that word makishti relate to that?
Yeah, so makishti, I made up that word based on the Nahuatl word makixtia. Makixtia has a lot of, I guess, different connotations. It's like there's a lot of words that have different meanings, but this one particularly means like literally being freed, like physically, in a situation, but also spiritually being freed, or emotionally being freed. So I like the sound of the word. I like the meaning of the word, and it kind of was relevant to what this record was. This record was, I thought of it as a culmination of sort of a period of my life that started from that very beginning of, classical percussionist to like finding improvisers and getting inspired by that until where I am now. So
do you, when you say the phrase "search for freedom," does some of that refer to improvising and free playing? I mean, I'm using air
Yeah.
quotes because you're free playing.
Yeah.
Who knows
Yeah.
what?
I think, yeah, no, totally. I think it's not like necessarily just like I guess. I mean, yeah, it is free playing because that's basically what I'm doing. But I'm thinking it more of just like, you know, being free to like of preconceived
Mm,
or you know or
yeah.
pre like preconceived ideas, so not only what the expectations of the instruments are, because I find that sometimes like you see a vibraphone and there's an expectation of what kind of music you should hear from that instrument,
Mm,
how that instrument should be played, and I wanted to just kind of go out of that and approach it more from
mm.
I'm a musician and this is the music that I'm hearing, whatever that happens to be, and this
Wow.
is just my vessel of expression. So that's kind of what the freedom means, just going away from those kind of, walls that are established throughout our careers in music, and just kind of being freed from that a little bit.
Boy, you're really preaching to the choir here. 'Cause speaking as a trumpet player, boy,
Yes.
if people don't,
I mean, every instrument deals with that, and there's like,
yeah,
oh, you must play that way and sound that way. And it's like, well,
right,
yeah.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
in my case, sometimes people are really, oh, I didn't think it would be like that. Wow, interesting. And some people are like, oh, I didn't think it
Yeah.
would be like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Um, so I think that it's really interesting how you're tying all that in with improvisation and the freedom to self-define,
Hmm.
and coming from these traditions and really finding a place as a
Right.
soloist, as a creative musician within this instrumental tradition.
Yeah.
I thought I'd play something where you're playing vibes, and I think it's not one of the improvisations. It's more of a composed thing, and you call it sonnet.
Hmm.
Is there a story behind the title and maybe what's going on?
Yeah, this was actually the first song that I guess wrote for this project.
Mm,
And when I wrote it, I wasn't even thinking about doing this record. It was just I remember I had a chord progression written in, and then I wanted to experiment with just kind of um, find different ways of organizing just the voicings of this particular progression that I was working on, and experimenting with the range of the instrument, and trying to do sort of take things to the extreme. So
mm,
a lot of this, if you see this piece visually, a lot of my voicings are kind of really far apart in the register of the instrument, and exploring sort of with what that kind of sound that creates. So but yeah, so it's kind of the more structured piece in the record. It's kind of like a tune. It's a
mm.
head, then I improvise over it, and then I bring it back at the end of the tune. So sort of like the standard of
Mm.
the record. So yeah.
Wow. Okay, well, let's listen to a little bit of that sonnet. You got such a beautiful sound on that. I mean, I know a lot of that is your touch, but where did you record this?
This was at Samurai Recording
Oh,
Studios in
okay.
Queens,
Yeah.
and it was the crew from Systems 2. Because originally I wanted to do it as Systems 2, but it
Oh,
was during this summer that they closed, and
oh.
so the engineers were Mike Marciano
Mm-hmm.
and Max Ross on it. So they did an awesome job really translating the way I wanted
Yeah.
the vibraphone to sound like, which, I'm very particular about that too, as to what I hear in other recordings and how I
Mm-hmm.
think, I want my sound to be on the instrument too. So
Wow.
they did
Yeah.
they did a great job on that. Yeah.
Yeah, they are great. And beautiful instrument, but it's like I said, it's also, of course, it's your touch. So we were talking about improvisation, but also coming out of classical percussion and maybe these marimba bands. We haven't talked about sort of what maybe would be more characteristic of a quote unquote jazz approach, meaning
Hmm.
song form, which
Yeah.
you're dealing with here on this one.
Yeah.
Um, how do you think about that?
Like, how did I get into that,
Well,
basically?
yeah,
Or
how did you get
yeah.
into it, and then how do you approach it now in the
Right.
context of all of the sonic and
Hmm.
structural aspects?
Yeah. Um, so let me just see how I can organize this in my head.
Yeah, I guess it's a big
So,
question. Sorry.
yeah. So
We
I
ask the
mean,
big ones here. It is called A Noise from the Deep. So,
right. I mean, I guess in the general sense, and it's interesting because I got into jazz because I wanted to improvise. I wanted
mm,
to write my own music, and at the time I was at Curtis. I was in Philadelphia, and it was, I think, the end of my first year there.
mm,
And by this time I have to emphasize I had already done 2 years of college in Mexico, so I wasn't
hmm
like, I was 19 years old. I was a little older than the rest of the crew that was at Curtis with me.
So this was
um,
at the beginning of the pandemic, then, right? A couple of years ago.
yeah, a couple of years
Yeah.
ago.
Okay. Perfect. No, I'm going to keep making the same joke, as you can see. Sorry. Go on.
It's okay. But so basically, the percussion teacher at the time used to bring a jazz vibraphonist in because he wanted to make sure that if we had a gig at a pops orchestra or something like that, that we were able to like read chord changes and being able to maneuver ourselves in a
Mm.
basic way through chord changes.
And
So that
Curtis,
was
not a
at
lot of
Curtis.
not a lot of improvising at Curtis, right? Like
Well,
pretty
it
rigorous.
depends.
Uh-huh.
It depends. Like I had a lot of piano friends that
Mm.
I thought it was amazing. Like they were able to improvise in this style of Scriabin or in the style of Chopin or Bach,
Mm.
and there was a teacher I really loved, a counterpoint and harmony teacher who will make you, instead of writing down your exercises, you had
Mm.
to do it on the piano. So kind of on the spot, make your own
Wow.
counterpoint exercise. And so I always saw those little elements as opportunities for improvising and
Mm-hmm.
kind of working that muscle. So,
Mm.
but yeah, and the pianists were a great inspiration for me because I was like, I want to be able to do that, to
Mm.
improvise in the language of Mina Romiki, which is a marimba composer, or in
Mm.
so that was one of the initial, improvisation seeds. But anyway, so eventually that led me to, well, I guess I should study jazz because that's sort of, what formally is going to train me to be able to do that.
Mm.
So that was sort of the beginning of that journey. And especially in Philly, it was a very, I guess, traditional approach,
Mm-hmm.
like learning, tunes and making sure that I practice my 2-5-1s and, and do all of those
What
things.
what's a 2-5-1?
What's it? Right, good question. It would always be a dark secret, I guess.
Okay. But you studied it. Let's just leave it there.
Yeah.
Right,
But
but
yeah,
all kidding aside, that is the nuts and bolts, the basic vocabulary
exactly.
of
Yeah.
song and of
Yeah.
forms and structures. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think it was from there because I mean, I always, I guess, um, I wouldn't say struggle, but I would say I always had the question in my mind, because what I started to identify is the idea of what the tradition is, what language is, and what does that mean to me as an improviser. I will try to connect more towards the emotional aspect of the improviser. So if I was if I was transcribing, let's say, a Charlie Parker solo, I wanted to connect first as to, why he was playing certain gestures, because sometimes it almost sounds like a gesture, let alone trying to pick up what notes he was playing, but more like it was almost an expression of yearn, or an expression of, something bigger than just trying to literally figure out what notes he was trying to play. So I was trying to connect to that more at first, and then I was drawn more to improvisers that will improvise from a melodic perspective more than a harmonic perspective. Just kind of almost using the melody of the tune, and really making sure that's always the center or the heart of your improvisation, instead of just like, okay, the solo begins and I'm just going to play changes and who knows what tune it is. And then come back to the head. So I was kind of more attracted to those kind of improvisers, and I guess that brings me to the other part of the question, which is, kind of being guided by melody and song rather than chord changes. I don't know if that makes sense, but
that totally makes sense.
Yeah. So sonnet is one of those pieces where it's inspired sort of by that thought process, and just, it's like in my head it was just a tune, like if I was playing a standard, but just thinking about the essence of the piece, the melody, and then obviously what the emotional content is being dictated by the harmonic experience through the piece, and let that lead my improvisation, other than more of a theoretical guide.
Yeah, I think that's what allows you to play freer too, is that
Yes.
the basis of what you're doing is derived from the feeling and the melodic information of the song. I mean, you're certainly aware of the harmonic movement, but you're not basing all your actions and decisions on the functioning of those moving chords.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of great players obviously think that way, and so many great improvising jazz musicians would say, "Oh, I'm never thinking about the chords."
Yeah.
When I'm up there, you've got to learn all that and forget it. Is a favorite, jazz trope of people say.
Yeah.
So I like that. That's really great, and I'm sure that that's something that you apply to other music that you play. I know that you play music by all sorts of different composers these days. You're in like 5 million bands.
Yeah.
And, and actually, we have this project in common that is just getting off the ground, and it's super interesting to write for you, and just see what happens in the different spaces, and also to play a piece that you wrote, that I can almost play, and it's wonderful. I wanted to, just to jump just a little bit. You're on this label called Valley of Search. And it's like not a lot of different artists on there. And it began as a sort of an archival label. So what is your connection to Valley of Search?
It's interesting how the relationship started, because I think at the time, once I recorded the record, it took me a little while to find a label. And part of it was because I was trying to find a place that wasn't necessarily a jazz label. I wanted it to reflect kind of what I think the music reflected, which is influences from classical music, from jazz, from all those different things, and kind of have a label that will be able to help me promote that. But aside from that, Nabil Ayers is the owner of the label, and he found me on Twitter, because I had posted a video of Sonnet on my profile there, and he saw it, and he's like,
wow.
I really like that piece, and do you have a record? And I was like, well, I happen to have records. So, and he actually happens to be Roy Ayers' son, so he has a strong connection to vibraphone as well.
Oh, that's so great.
So it was that whole thing, it was one of those moments that I think the universe put all the stars, in the right place, and they worked out great. So
you're basically telling young musicians that they should post clips on Twitter so that
yeah.
that's how they'll get a record deal.
Absolutely.
That's how everyone does it these days.
Yeah. But I think, what I like the most is I wasn't necessarily expecting anything. It was just one of those things that and throughout my life, I've always like to believe that there's the destiny has a certain part in whatever has happened, to me. So I saw this as one of those signs that is like all the things were aligned at the right place, and then it just kind of worked out for the best.
That's so great, and I think the fact that they're putting it on a gatefold double LP, is really, really fantastic, and I'm sure it's going to sound amazing. So I wanted to play something where I think you're using electronics, because I know that's something that you're doing a lot with. I'm not sure what you're using on this, but I'll just play an excerpt from your piece, Away From Us.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So this piece is actually completely bowed. I'm using.
It's not electronic. I was wrong.
No. It is electronic. Yeah.
Oh,
so it's both with electronics, and I think the inspiration for this piece, one of my favorite composers is Ligeti, and his orchestral pieces, like Atmosphere. I mean, they're very known, and my goal was to kind of make.
They should be more known, but yes, they're known.
One of my goals with this piece was to kind of create that sort of orchestral, a deep sound that you can get when the entire orchestra is creating sort of that big hum, or like a church organ. And part of the reason of my use of electronics is to express sort of sounds that I hear that I can't necessarily get by playing the vibraphone in a traditional way. So in this case, I'm using, I think it was a combination of some kind of delay and another effect, like some kind of reverb, and I just kind of mess around with that a little bit in a live performance. It's not post-production, so it's all done at once.
So you have foot pedals. That's
exactly, and each bar has a pickup connected to a mixer, and then the mixer goes through the pedals. And in this particular record, I did it through an amp, so the amp was mic'd just to kind of get a different sense of it. Different type of sound.
Didn't Ligeti describe that sound? It was something coming from his child. It was like something like spider webs and church bells or something. Cloud. I can't. I wish I could remember. There's a wonderful interview where he describes what you're talking about. I know what
you mean. Yeah.
Anyway.
I just love that. Being an orchestral percussionist, and especially when I used to play timpani, and being in the center, like kind of the heart of the orchestra, and feeling that hum in your belly. I just love that feeling. So
wow. Yeah. All right. Here it is. that's the song Away From Us. Again, it's on this record, Makishti. And Patricia, I know you're doing a lot of different things with electronics and working with sounds, but also extended techniques. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if they ever bleed over into each other. Like you're doing something with an extended technique and then you suddenly think, oh, maybe I can try to get that sound on the electron, or vice versa.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's, the goal is playing around with texture. And I think that's just my percussionist heart, speaking through the instrument. But definitely there's sort of that back and forth feedback where maybe I hear something on a effect and then I try to recreate it physically on the instrument, or vice versa. I start with some kind of a extended technique and then kind of develop it more to a particular effect that I can only get that sound with that kind of combination. So I mean it's like the bending pitch, for example. Bending pitch is something that I use in the record. Mm-hmm. And I can use that manually. And actually, when I play that piece for people, sometimes they think I'm doing it with a pedal, but I was like, no, that's actually totally manual. But I do enhance it with like some kind of a reverb, which kind of brings it up a little bit more. So there's always that constant play between the use of extended techniques and the combination of the live use of pedals to kind of enhance it or extend it or manipulate it or whatever. So
do you feel like there's a difference between the rig that you would bring to a gig and what's available to you, say, in a studio?
I think, well, I like to just work with things that I have, explored or kind of done my little scientific research behind it. Right. But I actually haven't had the experience of just like, going to the studio and just grabbing a pedal from there and like, let's see what this does,
I see.
But I would love to do that too, just to kind of, because I'm sure it's a different experience and just trying to play with whatever you're getting and improvise with whatever you're getting. And
yeah. I was thinking maybe like in your home studio with Ableton or something. Work, but it sounds like it's mostly a live situation for you.
Yeah, I haven't really explored doing like post-production things, or include. I mean, it's still a work in progress. So, and I'm still adding, kind of pedals to my gear and switching it around, and depending on what I'm hearing that particular moment, I try to look for it or trying to find a pedal that will represent the type of sound. I try to be careful to always come from a place where I'm hearing that rather than the other way around where I'm getting all these options. And then I feel like sometimes it could be like we could get a little lost in that, right. Right. So it's more like if I buy a pedal, it's because I'm looking for a particular thing that I'm trying to do. And I think that pedal could help me do that, so let me see if that works.
That's great. Do you prefer then when you go to a gig to be playing through an amp?
Yes.
You do? Yes.
And I learned that by the hard way, I guess, because I can connect directly to the oh my God, spacing out, like
the PA?
The PA, yeah. But I just it's very important for me to be able to interact with whatever's coming out of the on the other end. Right. And sometimes for the PA it's really hard to hear that or really hard to feel it, so right. Because it's not so much
you may not be in control. Once it's in the house amplification, it's in someone else's hands.
Exactly. Yeah. And I've learned that the hard way for sure.
Interesting.
But so I always prefer an amp and just to kind of have it sort of close to me so I can, again, control things but also I can hear everything that's going on because it's a constant feedback. And a lot of the improvisations in the record that use pedals is kind of using that as part of the improvisational content rather than I'm just going to play the same way and I'm just going to switch the way it sounds,
Right.
So
then with the vibraphone, you're obviously not like putting microphones and plugging them into the amp. It must be you're using the pickup.
Exactly. Yeah. Each bar, I have this system where each bar has a
Has its
glue
own
pickup
pickup.
to it. Yeah.
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 And then the sound quality is good enough with that?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh.
I really like it with this system. It actually has been around. It's called a K&K
Mm-hmm.
system, sound system. It's a company that also does pickups for their
I
instruments,
see. Oh, that's great.
and I've seen it around. Even other vibraphonists use it for a long time. But
Yeah.
I think most of the time it's used as an amplification, like in a gig or whatever. You know,
Well,
just
right.
kind
And
of
then if you're playing with a loud band, you're not going to have
exactly.
any problems either with feedback or not being able to hear yourself. It's one
Exactly.
or the
And
other.
recording wise is great because
Huh.
recording wise it goes directly to the console
Yeah.
and the signal is so clean.
There's no
Uh
bleed from like you're not getting nasty trumpet sounds in your file.
yeah. Totally. But actually I found a huge difference like the records that I've done after
Uh-huh.
I got the system.
Yeah.
So usually I combine the clean line with a room sound from the overhead mics and
Great.
so on,
Yeah.
and it just the final sound is which is what I did in my solo record as well. It sounds really full and rich,
Uh-huh.
and which is what I usually look for.
So you gave some of the stems of this record to an electronic artist named Arcturi,
Mm-hmm.
and he did I don't know if it's called a remix. He calls it Makishti Prismatic,
Yeah,
uh, and it's beautiful. And
I love it.
it's I mean, I guess it's appearing alongside the record. This is, the label Valley of Search put this together and made it happen, right?
Yeah, so this is was kind of like a it was kind of a way to give another boost, to the record because this came out I think I'm trying to remember November of last year, so kind of recent.
Of 2020 or
20,
2021?
2021,
I
yeah.
see.
Yeah, so it was the Makishi, the record came out in January 2021, and then Makishi Prismatic came in November.
Hmm.
And I think the whole name represents just sort of the kaleidoscopic aspect of this piece and kind of using the whole record as an inspiration. For what I understand, so actually Arctura is my husband, Noel Brennan. He's a turntablist, and that's his turntablist name. So he's an electronic musician with specialty in turntablism, which
Right.
is
Plus, he comes cheap.
yeah. I think another thing is because he knows me really.
I'm kidding.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
He knows me.
Really well, yeah.
He knows me really well, and also knows my like he was there when I made that record. He was present in the session and knows everything. And I thought it would be easier than having to not only explain the musical aspect to somebody, but also to get them to explain the source of where that whole thing came from. And also, I just really love his work as an electronic musician, and so I knew he was going to do something cool, and he did. Yeah.
Well, can we listen to a little bit of it?
Yeah.
So this is the piece called Prismatic, or is the name Makishti Prismatic?
Makishti Prismatic. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. So that's Arcturi, also known as Noel Brennan, uh, the electronic music artist. It's really great what he did with it. And boy, yeah, I bet you that gives you ideas for next projects.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's actually, we have a project together. It's a electroacoustic duo called Much, which is another Nahuatl word that means everything, and kind of the whole reason kind of encapsulates influence from everything. And
wow, beautiful.
Yeah, so we kind of do a lot of combination of kind of what that piece is of live performance of vibraphone, effects and some live production things via Ableton and things like that. So, yeah.
That's great. It would also make travel relatively easy.
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing less traveling these days, but I know that, your career has been very international. You've been all around the world from a young age with all sorts of different kinds of music and different projects. I noticed that I can't remember what I saw, but that you had done something, maybe an interview or a chat or something with the vibraphonist from the UK, Corey Mwamba.
Oh yeah,
and,
yes, yeah.
What was that exactly? He has a really interesting radio show, and he's also a great musician.
Yeah, he connected with me also. I think it was via Twitter. Twitter again.
see, kids, this is how it's done. Join Twitter now.
Yes, this for whatever reasons has become a promo for Twitter, but yeah. So we actually have a friend in common, which is pianist Alexander Hawkins, and I first heard of Corey through Alexander Hawkins, and I thought he's a wonderful musician when I went to check out his music, and then he reached out to me about doing something. I think the first thing that he featured was Sonnet. He wanted to incorporate that piece in his show called Freeness on BBC and BBC Radio, and then he invited me to do a feature on the record. So I really appreciate it, from vibraphonist to vibraphonist. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Wow, that's fantastic. What? I would assume that you're still implicated in all kinds of international projects, but of course, the way that travel has been challenged in recent many months.
Yeah.
Are you traveling much these days, or things coming up?
Let me think about it. Let's see, when was the last time? I think the last thing I did was just nothing out of the country yet. Just like local. I think the last thing I did was like a Northeast mini tour with I was doing a CD release of a singer called Mary LaRose, and she did a recreation of Eric Dolphy tunes and she added lyrics to them, and it's a really great group. Matt Wilson on drums, Jeff Lederer on saxophones, and the record was Nick Dunstan on bass and Tomika Reed on cello. So they weren't at this particular tour, but so yeah, that was I think the last thing I did. I think I've done a few trips here and there, but nothing internationally yet. I have some things coming up this year that hopefully it happen.
Well, and hopefully, this band that we teased earlier that we're putting, it's just at the very beginnings, but it's super interesting. Right. So you're writing for it, I'm writing for it, and then it's also Faye Victor, Darius Jones, and Sylvie Courvoisier. So it's a quintet, and very interesting range of voices, and everybody's writing. So we'll see. Hopefully, we'll be getting out with that.
I know. I hope so too.
Who knows?
Yeah.
And are you working on a next record? You don't have to be. There doesn't have to always be a next record, but I would assume that you are.
I am actually hopefully doing it's a quartet record, but technically it's a vice trio with a percussionist. So the recording, hopefully, if everything goes as supposed to be, will be at the end of March. So it's a vibraphone, marimba, bass, drums, and Afro-Cuban percussionist. So the record would be Mauricio Herrera as a percussionist, Kim Cass on bass, and Marcus Gilmore on drums. And so it'd be fun. I can't wait. So I've been writing music for that, and trying to kind of channel sort of those influences. One of the reasons of the Afro-Cuban percussion is because I've grew up hearing that sound since I can't even remember something, and I'm a percussionist at heart as well, so I want the music to kind of reflect all those aspects. And
well, I can't wait to hear that. That's
it'll be fun.
That's gonna be amazing. So thank you so much for making the time to have this conversation. I learned so much, and once again, I love hearing the music. I thought I would go out playing this other song from the record, Derrumbe de Turquesas.
Yeah.
What's the story?
So this one's kind of a tough one, even though it's sort of the one of the most simplest songs in the record. I wrote this because during that summer that I recorded my record, my maternal grandmother passed away. And so this is sort of a homage to her. And Derrumbe de Turquesas is a phrase that from a Pablo Neruda poem that he was signaling sort of like water dripping or tears falling. So the turquoise are sort of like the color of the tears, and derrumbe means to kind of to fall. So it was sort of reflecting sort of the sentiment where that was experiencing during that summer, and not being able to be there, not being able to go say goodbye to her. So this one always gets me.
Yeah, the fact that she was the musician that you first heard.
This was my other grandmother.
Oh, your other grandmother.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, still, it's horrible, but nonetheless, family is tough.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful piece. So, Patricia, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. And what's your website again? That people, I mean, these days, I guess people will just hunt you up and find. Yeah. You can find Patricia Brennan on Twitter.
Yeah.
24 hours a day. That's the best way to check her out. No. Go get the record. And here's this final piece. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. That was the music of Patricia Brennan, and this is A Noise from the Deep, the Greenleaf Music Podcast. I'm Dave Douglas. Please join us. Come and become a member at greenleafmusic.com. Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.